Hello, and welcome. Well, thank you for the introduction. Let's get straight into it. I have three accomplished leaders with me for this panel today. Starting off to my right, Johnny Chou of Best.inc. Born in Zhejiang, Johnny studied in the U.S. and has worked in both China and the U.S. for most of his career. He spent much of his career in the telecoms industry, having worked at AT&T Bell Lab, UT Starcom China, and most recently Google as its China head before he decided to start his own company, Best.inc, a logistics company that is backed by Alibaba. As the story goes, as Johnny traveled on the road in China and traveled back and forth between the U.S. and China, he was shocked to see how inefficient China's logistic industry was compared to the U.S. So he started Best.inc, a supply chain management business and logistics service provider, which today now delivers 15 million packages a day. And that's just one part of the business. Next, we have Spencer Fung, who is the chief executive of Fung, which helps retailers like Walmart and Marks & Spencer source their products. Spencer is steering the 112-year-old company forward at a difficult time. Its customers are grappling with huge changes in the global retail industry, like the move from bricks and mortar to online and the growth of fast fashion. Spencer took over the business in 2014 and has focused on using technology to adapt to the fast-moving industry. Prior to becoming CEO, he was Group Chief Operating Officer, responsible for building the company's global infrastructure. Then we have Rupert Hogg from Cathay Pacific. Rupert became Chief Executive Officer in May of 2017 at a particularly turbulent time for the industry and for the Hong Kong carrier. Just weeks later, Cathay announced plans for a dramatic overhaul, cutting nearly 600 jobs. Cathay is facing headwinds like fierce competition from low-cost carriers and a fall and volatile travel business more broadly. He is undertaking a transformation of the business to make Cathay, in his words, leaner, faster, and more responsive to customer needs. Rupert has been with Swire, one of Hong Kong's oldest conglomerates, since 1986. He was a director of sales and marketing and chief operating officer before he took over last year. So, with that, let's get started with the questions. First off, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between leadership in practice and leadership in theory. You've all been in leadership roles for some time. Can you share with us each a situation that was a real teaching moment for you? What was your takeaway from that? So, Johnny, I'll have you start.
I was in the telecom business before, so I was engineer. I started this integrated logistics service. Actually, I haven't never done it before. So first movement is that you really have to set a vision and seeing very far. And often you get doubts when people and your partners and say, this is impossible, that cannot be done. It should be done that way. So how, you have a movement, you hire people, you have the people coming on board, but maybe after 6 months, a year, they quit. They don't think that's possible. This is the movement that you really have to be stay your course and stay your belief. And another movement like this is that, often you run out of money. A few years ago, I have that movement when we were trying to raise the fund, and the money dried up. And there's many interesting people were talking about it, but they would say, asking, when you're going to make money, how this thing going to be happening. And that was really a tough time. How you're going to continue to keep yourself spirit high and continue to communicate with your team, and the partners and shareholders are able to get support. And I think that was the takeaway I had in the last 10 years. Looking far, stay truthful to yourself, be a good person so people can rely on you and willing to trust you what you do. And when this talk time does come, and you have to really, really stay on your course, trust yourself, and what you're doing, it's right.
So believe in yourself.
Yes.
Stay strong, stay true to,
yes,
as an entrepreneur, to what
right.
You believe in. Okay, thank you. Spencer?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Alex and Rise, for inviting me to this conference. I'm very excited to be here. One of the moments that really hit me as I was learning to become a leader happened during the financial crisis. I remember it was about 2009, a couple of months, about a year after the financial crisis, one of my largest customers actually went bankrupt. When my customer went bankrupt, that was one of the largest retailers in the world.
Can you tell us who that was?
Sorry?
Can you tell us who that was?
It was a company called Arcandor in Germany. They were a $20 billion retailer across all over Europe, but based in Germany. But that bankruptcy caused basically the whole system to collapse. We were working with about 2,000 suppliers in 20 countries. All of a sudden, the suppliers came to the next biggest pocket, which was us. But nobody in our company or in the industry has ever faced that problem before. So that was the first time I realized that a lot of people who I thought was very good managers during the good times when the company was rising froze. They just froze in the time of adversity, and then kind of people in the peripheral that weren't even in a leadership position just rose up and took charge of the situation. They stayed calm. They analyzed the situation and just step by step managed that crisis. So that was when I first started thinking about starting to analyze the difference between what I call good time managers and crisis time leaders. Right? True leaders really emerge during crisis times and times of change. Kind of like now, I think the world is changing and so rapidly and turning upside down. I think the true leaders are really emerging and taking charge and saying that, you know what, the situation has changed from before. I need to have a new model. Now I need to lead my team down a new path. So this is something that I'm constantly studying now, and is how to become a true crisis time leader.
You're talking about leading when there isn't a script, so to speak.
Yeah.
You have to kind of go with your gut instinct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, first things I'd say is I'm still learning. But if you think about what we do as an airline, and you think about the activity that must go on for 500 flights to take off a day, and that's before the passengers arrive, and big operational and safety-related issues. So it's an industry that really, I think, values experience and competency in those areas. And it's an industry that values consistency and uniformity. And so what that means is that you have a lot of experienced people. Now, if you have to suddenly transform, it's essentially all around change management. And, I realized very early on that my goal is to create the vision and set the direction, not necessarily the destination, but the direction of travel, and convince people of that, and then bring them along with me. And that's a big team effort. But it's a much more difficult thing than I appreciated when I set out. But I think that would be my biggest lesson in the last couple of years. It's all about communication, clarity of vision, and the direction of travel.
Okay, thank you. Second question for you guys. Who is the best leader that you have worked for? We don't need to know who the person is. I mean, we don't need to recognize them, but who did you work for who you thought was particularly effective? Why were they so effective? And tell us a little bit about that. We'll start with Spencer this time.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I can talk about who I think is one of the best leaders that I've worked for, and it may sound a little self-serving, but it's my father, Victor. He is a person that never micromanages, but always gives a vision, and sets a lot of examples, and then let you sort of fail. Let you just do stuff and fail. That's what I like. I think everyone likes a different style. But I don't like, I guess somebody telling me what to do every single step of the way. And I do like people who provides a vision and just kind of sets a path for you to actually succeed or fail. So that's one of the sort of the best environment for myself. And I've learned a lot, under this particular style.
Great. Thank you. Rupert?
Yeah, I've worked for a couple of very clever people. And the reason I've liked working for them is that they've been able to take very complex situations and drive real insight from them and give real clarity. I think there's a great art to making complex things simple so that other people know what to do. And it's always been an adage of mine that it's not good enough to be right, you've got to be effective. And I've had a couple of bosses that have been very good at doing that themselves and allowing everyone else in the team below to be much more effective as a result.
Yeah. Johnny?
Yeah, every one of us, I think that the first job is very, very important. I was very fortunate when I first joined in the Bell Labs. In my first job, I was there for 11 years, rise from engineer to manager to directors. So my first managers, or my boss, he was a very encouraging people. I was very fortunate, giving me free hands, always trusted what we want to do. So we actually was doing something very unique. You know, you was working on, everybody have a mobile phone today, right? So at the time, we were actually in 1980s, we're designing these mobile phones and these microprocessors and software when 30 years ago, these are all brand new stuff in Bell Labs. Basically, we entrusted us starting from beginning, nothing, right? Allow us to go do what we think we can do. And I learned a lot from the experience, starting from an engineer out of school to a technical manager to directors. But through this rank, learn a lot about innovation, trusting the teams. All these good things come with this experience. So I owe a lot to this to our first managers.
Thank you. Next question is about culture and shared vision. How important is it within an organization and the leaders all throughout the organization to all have a shared vision, a shared sense of values? Rupert, I'll have you start, and in particular for you, in a moment of turbulence within your own company, how important is it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, if you think about what RISE is about and the disruption that's possible from technologies that are exponentially growing in terms of what they can do, their capabilities, and then the convergence of those technologies to be able to really disrupt business models. And I think that's a huge, huge opportunity. So clearly, if you look at me, I'm quite a geriatric, really, relative to everyone in this room and the technologies. I can't lead from the top and be prescriptive. So I have to make sure that people who understand those technologies, understand what they can do for us, have a chance to speak, have a chance to allow us to take advantage, really. So that means that I think you have to have a strong culture, you have to have a shared vision, and you have to be supportive, particularly as a lot of that requires a bit of, try and fast fail. So I think culture is really important. The vision is really important, but the vision shouldn't be too prescriptive. It's the direction of travel. What are we trying to achieve for our customers? What are we trying to achieve in making ourselves more productive? What are we trying to achieve in terms of operations and getting more out of our aircraft and our assets? So, in that sense, you've got to have the vision, but you've got to trust people and make sure that they have an environment where they can flourish and make these technologies work for us. Mm.
Spencer, for you in particular, because you have come in at a time where you're trying to lead something very different, changing a disruption, tell us what it means for you in terms of how important vision is and communicating that and making sure everybody's on the same board.
Sure. We are a company with 112 years of history, so there's a deep sense of value, for example. So value is really the basic foundation of our company, which has not changed for 100 years. And the culture is changing all the time. We bought 100 companies over the last 20 years, so a lot of new culture came into the company. And now we're actually trying to, not unify, but at least set the tone for that culture. And as the times change because of disruption, our vision has changed. So communicating that vision becomes the next layer. And because we are so dispersed into 300 different locations in 60 countries, it's very hard to communicate the vision to people. So one thing that I've always learned from past leaders of multinational companies, they always tell me you can never communicate enough. So we do many different ways to communicate this vision to make sure that everybody shares that passion. It's not easy because we've been doing one thing for many, many years, and now we're trying to switch to another thing, to become more digital, for example. That vision is very hard to share or get buy-in. So we need to communicate it, we need to get buy-in, then we need to turn it into action and then execute it. So that whole journey has been very difficult, but it's obviously very, very important. But in times of change, I also see that what you do every day has to change a lot. So managing that constant change is really the biggest challenge for me right now, but it's obviously very important.
Got it. Johnny, you had to convince all the people you convinced to join and start a new company with you. You had to convince them of your vision. Tell us a little bit about that and whether you have had a hard time over the years, getting people on board with your specific vision for Best.inc.
Okay. Running a company or building a company, just like running a marathon, right? So the culture, the vision is very, very important. So first of all, I always tell the team, the industry change, disruption always come from outside. Okay, so if you look at what happened in the world today, all the disruption, from mobile phones to the software technology, all this stuff, automobiles, all come from outside. So we have to continue to tell people that you can do things differently. It doesn't have to be what the people has been done. So in the beginning, we brought people, in a traditional industry, some experts and some of these. And some people just won't stay for long, right? 6 months, a year, they feel like this is an impossible mission, right? But some people, they may not necessarily in this industry. They come from complete background, different background. In fact, most of my senior management right now, almost all of them, did not come from a background in logistics or supply chain. They all come from technology industry, telecommunication, with a vision that something can be done differently. Right, so the first thing is very important that you create this kind of culture to let them know that. So we're starting from a cloud, best cloud, building the software to parcel delivery, to fulfillment, to truck fulfillment, the platform, etc. This also this kind of belief that things can be done differently, that disruption come from outside. So culture has become a company's, if you want to be successful in long run, and that's what needs to be built. So we always believe in can be done, right? Technology, everything can be done better. So you want to help people think differently. I always say to the people in the culture, when we doing the orientation for the new people come in, saying that if you're doing the same thing today as yesterday, you will not have tomorrow. So we always tell people that today should be different from yesterday, and tomorrow gotta be different from today. So when you have this kind of culture, people start thinking, okay, how can be done differently? And what do we have today? It gotta be different tomorrow. So these are the culture we continue to install in the team and make sure that they believe themselves that whatever they think, if they put minds to it, it can be done.
Thank you. Yeah. This is a tough one. Maybe not. What percentage of leadership roles at your companies are held by women? And are you happy with that number? And if not, what are you doing to encourage more female leadership? I'll let one of you jump in. Who's ready?
Shall I go? So it's interesting. It depends what you mean by leadership or management. But
like management, yeah. Senior. We're talking senior positions.
So it's basically too low. It's too low, right? So we would like to do better than we currently do.
Do you have a sense of the percentage, though?
Yeah, at different levels. The general manager group, I think it's about 30%.
1-3?
3-0.
3-0. Okay.
3-0. At the executive level, at the management committee level, we have a rotational system within Swire companies, and in fact, the only lady who was on our executive committee has just gone to a job in Swire Properties, so we're all men. We would like to do better in other areas, particularly amongst the pilot community as well. So we're doing a lot, I think, to make sure that at the induction stage, when we're just attracting people to the business, that we're really tapping the full talent pool and that we don't have any unconscious bias in that respect. We're pretty equal in terms of opportunity once you're into the company, but clearly we need to do more around, what makes it a sustainable career for women than we're doing at the moment. So we're on it, but we've got to acknowledge that we're not where we want to be.
Thank you. Spencer?
Sure. Our industry actually is sort of dominated by women. And I'll tell you why. Because retail is a detail. Supply chain for retail, that's just what we do. It's also very detail-oriented. In fact, females actually perform better in a lot of the roles that we do. So I believe that in terms of gender equality, pay equality, we rank pretty high up, even globally, compared to multinationals. There was a study being done earlier this year. And let me give you an example. In our Korea office, Korea is a male-dominated society. And most corporations are led by male, and is dominated by male. I think in our office in Korea is 95% female. And the entire office is run by female.
What are they doing? What kind of jobs?
Management, everything. It's a fully blown office in Korea. So it's one of our strongest offices, and it's got the highest efficiency level also in our whole global system. So just to give you an example, so our company in the industry is actually very sort of equal, if you will.
Do you have a figure or an approximate figure for senior management?
I don't have the exact figure with me, but it's fairly high. And all the people who are coming up, there are lots of actually female members.
Okay, so as your company grows, right, or everybody had different kind of talent skills. So some people may be pretty good at 0 to 1, but when you're moving from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it requires different kind of skill set. So in the company, you should have a system in place that allow that people at a different stage doing different things. So in the past many years, a lot of people started with the company and did a lot of great work, bring the company to IPO. We just listed last year in the New York Stock Exchange. But sometimes if they keep on their current job, probably not the best fit. You got other people probably better fit into this position. So you have to be able to break this trends of continue doing the same thing over. You need to bring different people, different talent into a different stage of work. That's what we try to do, is make sure that people can do their best in a different kind of position, and continue to create more things so people can be creating more futures and more big work.
And do you have a sense of how many women work for you at the senior level?
Oh, okay. We have our EMG group is about 10 people, I think. There's about 3 senior vice president ladies. So they are running, some are running business units, HR, finance, and all these key positions. So, we are basically trying to bring the best talents, whoever they are, and best fit to this.
Got it. Thank you. Well, we are just out of time, so thank you, all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Great discussion.
Okay, thank you.